Welcome everyone, and thanks for watching this video today. And today we are going to speak with Dr. Kasia Kines about Epstein-Barr virus. Dr. Kasia Kines is the CEO and founder of the Global Epstein-Barr Virus Institute, a global leader in recovery therapy for chronic Epstein-Barr, an Amazon best-selling author of the Epstein-Barr virus solution, a wellness expert, and a highly respected doctor of clinical nutrition. She's a graduate of Bastyr University, the Harvard of Natural Medicine, and its world acclaimed graduate nutrition program. She was also in the first ever cohort of doctorate in functional clinical nutrition from Maryland University of Integrative Health. Since 2005, Dr. Kasia Kines has built an international reputation as a clinical functional nutritionist, from being sought after by Johns Hopkins University to clients globally, to her groundbreaking work about Epstein-Barr virus. Dr. Kines has developed a proprietary evidence-based methodology and approach to Epstein-Barr recovery, which is now available to anyone in her highly successful Epstein-Barr recovery program. She also provides professional clinical training to other practitioners in her clinical Epstein-Barr training and certification program and the EBV practitioner workshop. Dr. Kines is a passionate advocate for debunking common misinformation about EBV in the medical community and lectures on this topic extensively. She is on a mission to bring her EBV knowledge and solutions to the world globally so that no one has to suffer needlessly from this misunderstood virus and its complications. So join me as we jump over to talking with Dr. Kasia Kines.
So thank you for having me here. I hope this will help some of your community. So yes, so I've been in a clinical practice as a functional nutritionist for years, and then the deeper you go clinically, the more complicated cases you get, which we hate. We hate calling people complicated cases, but when we talk to each other, it's like, you get stuck sometimes, you hit the wall, and not for the lack of trying. Both the patient and the practitioner just working so hard, and most of the time we help, but sometimes there are some cases we just hit the wall together. And this was, and the longer you work, the more complexities you see. And then so the next point was thyroid dysfunction, because that was epidemic. And then from thyroid dysfunction, I realized that infections can cause thyroid dysfunction, thyroid autoimmunity, like H. pylori, and I was working with that a lot. But then EBV showed up. But really, on a more personal level, I had a very dear friend in Poland who lost her battle with multiple sclerosis for almost 20 years. She fought, and she was mysteriously, diagnosed out of the blue 6 months before I was to move permanently to the US from Poland. She lived in Poland. And so all my immigration years, starting the life here, building my life here, was very ironic, because I always thought I was building the life here. She was losing her battle slowly, and there was nothing that I could do. And it was heartbreaking, and I always felt guilty, because at a certain point I was already a nutritionist and I didn't know. And to the point that when we lost her, in my desperation, I even asked a friend of mine who is a medical intuitive, like, can you tell me what caused her MS? What was it, And the EBV came up. And then a couple of my clients within a short period of time asked me about medical medium. The book was published, it was a big hit, everybody was talking about it. And so if a couple of people asked me, I needed to know have an educated opinion on it. So I said, okay, I bought it, and I had to read it on a plane to a business conference or medical conference, because otherwise I didn't have time. Yeah. But when I was reading that book, I would have fallen off the chair if it hadn't been glued to the plane. Because I was seeing all these people that I was failing, like, oh my gosh. And my friend's story was right there with a mess. He was making very bold claims about EBV, pulling on all these strings. And I was just reading and reading and reading. So basically that plane trip changed my life because I went back to my practice and I just never stopped. I started to pursue um, everything I could get my hands on in terms of medical literature. And over the years, I saw that the response is very polarized. Medical medium is on one spectrum, extreme, follow the spirit of compassion. I'm just downloading information. And then on the other end of spectrum, you have medical community. You can't tell them that spirit says that this is EBV. Plus, he was making bold statements about EBV is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how you do it, like, black and white blank statements. It will work for a lot of people, but people are individual, and we're, it's that, everybody's, even with your protocol for detoxifying, every person will have to tweak it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so and then I realized I was studying lab interpretation and what you actually should test and shouldn't, and I saw it was such a hot mess. And I started to hear stories from people that have gone through testing and interpretation from doctors, and we started to request testing, and I started to see patterns, and I started to pursue the medical literature, constantly looking at medical literature and what was verified and creating protocols. Was very lucky to work with Dr. Vasquez in my doctoral program. It was the only time he taught there, one semester.
Mm.
And it included virology. And it wasn't about EBV specifically, but it taught me about viruses. And I just latched on to how he was working and just started to create the protocol. And all this time I was working through my clinic with the labs, the protocols with my clients, and they were turning around. And these were the stubborn Hashimoto's cases and this and that, and then people were asking me to write it into a book. And I had never written a book. And I had a full practice. I had no life. The PhD was on top of that. It's like, what are you talking about? My husband, the director of the doctoral program, Isabella Wentz, reviewed my 75-page medical literature review. It's like, when are you going to publish? It's like, publish what? And so, but people were hurting, and I got so much feedback. So many people were coming. There was so much pain, and I think my friend Marlena up there was pulling strings to make sure I trained with the right people. I was lucky here, lucky there. It was just everything was lining up, and I had to write the book. So her life wasn't forgotten. It's like I had to do that, and then I had to, publish it, and it wrote itself. I don't know how. It somehow, what I was doing for almost 20 years was exactly what the virus hates. So my philosophy of the diet, the oxidative stress, and my detox program that I used to run, a lot of that stuff went into the book because I started to see that the research backs up what I was doing. So then I was looking at some of my clients from my detox programs before, over the years, like, this woman had lupus, this woman had this woman had this. They recovered, and I just thought it was toxicity.
Mm.
But we were doing a lot of things that were antiviral, and I didn't even know it.
Mm.
So that's why I was able to write the book in 1 year, 1 year and a half, and it's 580 pages.
It is.
I mean, I don't know. I have to say it's Marlena. I mean, I have to say it's somewhere.
I have the book, and I'm like, where did it go? It's way over there. It's like a Bible. It's really big.
It's big because I thought my job is, so medical medium started a whole movement, like, this is great, open the door. So my job was to take what he claimed, see if I can find any validation in medical literature, see if I can get tracking with my own community, and see predictable results, and create protocols and processes, and then create a book that, like, 1/3 is for medical doctors and 2/3 is what to do, either for clinical nutritionists to work with, or yourself. to
Mhm.
bridge that gap.
Yeah.
So people are falling through the cracks. There's like people need help. So that was my job, and I feel now my job is to we have an online program we've been running for a few years for people that are sick, and that's wonderful. And now I finally doing practitioner training. I need to train people
Mhm.
to work with more patients and clients, and so that's really fun to do because to watch them like come to life, it's like, oh, I get it, we can do that. You know, it's treatable and it's reversible. And I'm quoting medical literature.
Yes.
I'm not a medical doctor, I can't say that, but that's study.
Yeah.
I would say the virus is predictable. That's my quote. If you
Okay.
have EBV virus, it's predictable. We have ways to turn it off. It's just amazing. So yeah.
Awesome. That's wonderful. And I know you've helped so many people. Um, so why don't you tell us, why Epstein-Barr virus is so problematic in the first place?
Well, it's a virus like no other viruses because it can turn on autoimmune autoimmunity genes. If you have some genes for autoimmune conditions, like you may have a gene for celiac, and you may not even know it, but you may eat gluten and bread, and you have no problem, and then you get infected with EBV, and boom, you have full celiac. You don't even know. You just get very sick when you eat gluten, and you may not even know it. So it's like a mystery, right? So autoimmunity galore. I mean, the laundry list of conditions, all these weird autoimmune conditions, the big ones like Hashimoto's, we mentioned, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes type 1, MS,
Mhm.
um, just a laundry list of inflammatory conditions related to the brain. Even there's some hypothesis even about Parkinson's. I mean, when you start going after literature, it's a hot topic. Cancer, there's more and more cancer research. They're looking at breast cancer, colorectal cancer. The 10% or more, I think between 10 or 18% of our stomach cancer is actually caused by the virus. It's oncogenic. So because it kind of, when it affects your immune cells like B cells, it makes them immortal like cancer cells,
Mm.
literally. Then all kinds of hypotheses about that. So it can cause cancer. I've seen thyroid cancer. There's specific thyroid cancers that are validated in medical literature, and I've seen cases of women, and you have surgeries, you have radiation, you have this and that, but they're still not looking at the root cause, and the virus is still there. So the tragedy is, yeah, you can have Graves' disease, you can have Hashimoto's, and they may be triggered by the virus. So and commonly chronic fatigue syndrome.
Mhm.
Sometimes fibromyalgia, myalgias, all kinds of myalgias. So all kinds of connective tissue disorder, all kinds of, you know, if the virus is in the connective tissue or in the muscle tissue, or it goes into spleen, liver, thyroid, brain, goes in different places. So can have different manifestations. So that's the problem. The 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 reason you want to look at EBV and exclude it is if you have, this is what research says, if you have so-called idiopathic condition, so they can't explain why you have it. That's possible scenario for chronic EBV, so you should test it. Or if you have like refractory condition, when it's chronic, you're doing everything and it's not responding, you should be looking into excluding it. And then,
Mhm.
of course, if you do the testing, you better go to my website because we have a whole page about testing, because people may be sick for years because that test is done improperly and interpreted poorly,
Yeah.
because the standard interpretation in medical practice is faulty. No, not anybody's fault, but it's just not consistent with medical literature exactly. So you can really be confused even as a doctor and miss it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a hot mess. And it's like, if you think Hashimoto's is big, this is even a bigger umbrella over Hashimoto's. Like,
Right.
whoa, oh, it's so big.
Yeah. And so it's interesting that you bring up an association with cancer, because interestingly enough, I just was sent a research article um, that I think is just recently released, talking about the theory of breast implant associated large cell lymphoma, anaplastic large cell lymphoma, having an Epstein-Barr connection as far as the pathogenesis of it. And this study they did was very, very tiny. It's only like 7 people. So clearly we need a lot more, a lot bigger sample size to really make that connection. But it's interesting that, like, you had mentioned that connection with cancer. On occasion that happens. And then I recently got this article as well, kind of pointing or hinting at that might be a possibility for
Yeah.
why this develops.
So that would be, so I might not be surprised that much, because if you look at one of the things that I noticed with this virus in particular is the big questions you asked me, why this virus, and I didn't answer it, but I think part of it is the environmental pollution. Because I think, we have studies, we don't have enough studies in general, but we have some potential studies on scanty or not enough, but there is a direction. But anecdotally, I know it's happening because I see it in our community. So it's like, for me, it's like, yeah, I know it's happening. We don't have enough studies just starting, just like this one you mentioned. Certain toxins in particular reactivate EBV, like dioxins, burning forests, burning wood, fireplace,
Mm.
car exhaust, that's dioxins.
Mm.
Consistently. Possibly heavy metals, especially mercury,
Mm-hmm.
and generally environmental toxins. That's one study that suggested that can trigger reactivation. 95% of global population carries that virus. We have that virus, and most people, it doesn't do anything, and your immune system takes care of it, antioxidants take care of it. You'll never hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not your community. There's going to be compromisation because of that implants.
Yeah.
So it's possible that the toxic material, especially if it leaks, I just wouldn't be surprised, knowing what I know about this virus. Toxicity is not a good mix for that virus.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is the mechanism behind some of these Epstein-Barr associated onset of different disease states? What is the trigger there? What is going on at the cellular level? Is it with autoimmunity? Is it cellular mimicry? Is it somehow affecting the immune system in a way that triggers like your gene of genetic weakness? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple. Of course, any person that is immune compromised
Mm-hmm.
is an open door for EBV. It's an opportunist. I think EBV is just like a virus in the computer. It's almost like not a living creature. It's just mechanical. So that's why it's so predictable. Things will turn it on and off. And so I would say chemical exposure, environmental toxicity, like dioxins in particular. So that would be one. Electromagnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
So Wi-Fi technology. Mold. There's a big one that will confuse, that will make things worse. And we see the biggest one, and the biggest one in research as well. And number one, when I think in our community, every single person would probably tell me exactly the time when they reactivated EBV, and that's stress.
Mm-hmm.
And that's stress for many reasons. Chemicals of stress seem to be feeding the virus, adrenaline, cortisol. changes in hormones
Mm.
feed the virus. So, big change in hormones when you have acute stress. And we're talking about really deep stress, like really devastating stress when people lose somebody a loved one, or they are betrayed, um, or they're just over giving, they don't have boundaries. We have a joke that it's like, welcome to anonymous, international, overachiever type A personality, you know, empathetic club. It's like big-hearted people with big heart, and they're just blasted with all the energies and overgiving and not having boundaries and overworking. And so any form of stress, like really even astronauts in space, prophylactically get medication, antiviral medication, because they have a higher likelihood of reactivating EBV. That's a study. And I talked
Mhm.
to NASA scientists, and they're like, yeah, they get medication. They all said, oh, we know. Like, what? So stress can be overstated.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so hard to get this virus under control back into its dormant state? I know, with the medical field, this is like a constant struggle, and really the only tool they have is antiviral medications.
Right.
And that's not really solving the root of the problem. But um, I'd love to just hear your thoughts on why it is so hard to get under control.
It's
And
not.
does it hide? Does it hide from the immune system? Like, why doesn't the immune
Yes.
system see it?
Yes. It's yeah. That's true. It's very well equipped. It's so when you reactivate, you lysine your B cells or infected cells, so they burst open, and there's a lot of young virons spilling out of that infected cell, and there they go in the bloodstream, and they're looking for condo. So they're gonna go for thyroid or here or there, and then they live. They go in and they leave the blood. Once they get into your B cells or other cells, they completely change the way they signal. So every cell has a system of this kind of kamikaze when they can start to terminate because they're infected. The virus has the ability to turn that off. So they can't signal, come get me and kill me because I'm infecting, everybody else. Uh, they also prevent the cell to be recognized by other immune cells so they can come and get help, be helped. So it completely changes the way the B cell functions. It's like an immortalized cancer cell, and it keeps replicating and replicating and replicating your B cells. And that's how the more B cells infected you have, the longer it goes on, the more of those B cells are cloning, and the more of the young virons are going to be manufactured from the DNA inside, creating their own RNA. So yeah, so it is very confusing to the immune system.
So then is EBV, it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is that EBV might not necessarily be the real problem, that it may be a result of other underlying problems. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say it's correct. I would definitely say it's correct. You can get EBV through blood transfusion because that's not tested for EBV, but I will tell you this. I work with so many people, and if spouses are involved, it doesn't mean that the spouse has EBV. I'm sure they do because it's a kissing disease, but why is one person normal and one is disabled? Like literally on disability sometimes, right?
Mhm.
So it's the way our body handles the virus. We all have it.
Yeah.
We have other ones too. It's the it depends also on the lifestyle, on sleep, and on the diet, and on the amount of antioxidants you can provide, because the virus creates a lot of oxidation,
Mhm.
and the best tool we have is antioxidants.
Right.
And so you need antioxidants, whether it's food supplements. So um, fruits are great. It's the highest level of antioxidants is in fruits, and which is the one food group that we're phobic of in America, fruits, because they have too much sugar,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
I have to I have to post a picture of my fruit bowl dump a lot of fruits there, and say, here, you can eat a whole bowl of these cherries at one sitting. You're not going to die. The blood sugar will not skyrocket. You're not going to get sick. This is perfect food. And I'm salivating just talking about it with you. We're designed to chew on these. And so the diet and then supplements have to be heavy on antioxidants. So that's my protocol. Selenium is an antioxidant on top of anti-EBV activity, anti-replication of the EBV, and so on. So the core foundation of the protocol, the supplements, is those multitaskers like selenium that perform many functions, but they are antioxidants.
Mm-hmm.
So you start turning off the virus's ability to do anything. And once you provide the raw material, the body knows what to do with it, and it just the body builds up, and you become really invincible. That's pretty much. It's not. Once I figured it out, I realized it's not rocket science. It's very consistent, actually, and very logical.
Okay.
But like if doctors start to hit it with botanical medicine and then prescription medications and some supplements, and they go on for a year or two, and sometimes it works, sometimes that's not good enough. That's really not strategic. You have to be more aggressive and go for those multitaskers. So like we don't use botanical medicine because for me it's not worth the penny as much as the other ones, except licorice. The herbs we use as herbal tea because you have to drink, so you can sip hot tea with meals. There's a lot of herbal teas that can provide benefits for EBV. So every time you open your mouth, you build it up.
Yeah.
It's inexpensive and available. You can only pop so much of supplements. So we kind of strategically downregulate this virus. And plus, the big thing is to avoid junk food, because if you go for junk food, you vastly increase an inflammatory marker called NF-kappa B. And NF-kappa B is like a multi-protein. That's what the virus loves to hijack to replicate. Another thing. So just one meal in a fast food joint, there was a study. It increased NF-kappa B by 150% per 2 hours. So that's an open invitation to more replication. So you eat something like that, and then you may feel crappy, not just because of digestion, but the EBV may be actually turning on right there and then. It's actually, is it rocket science the way no, it doesn't seem right. No.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward, yes, which is the good news. You just have to kind of reframe how we live in this country and how we process stress and how we overwork and what is our working environment. And just that we do things that are common here in this culture that are common but not normal, and illness is common but not normal.
So common though that people tend to normalize things.
Yes. Common doesn't mean normal.
Yeah.
You can feel much better in your 50s than you ever felt in your 30s. This I'm quoting my client earlier today, who is recovering and is doing fantastic. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And you know it, and you're teaching it. And to our audience, you have to believe it. It's totally possible.
That's key. And so in working with a lot of women who have had their breast implants removed, I've discovered that a good amount of the time, Epstein-Barr seems to be a common little bugger that people struggle with. And I don't always test for EBV markers directly. I have done quite a lot of that in the past, but I've seen a lot of, elevated early antigen, which is, that obviously that marker of current viral replication. Yep. And, I've just seen other things as well on basic blood work, like elevated monocytes and suppressed white blood cells and other immune markers like elevated cholesterol. just that aberrant, vitamin D to calcitriol ratio, acutely elevated blood sugars and elevated albumin and other mitochondrial markers showing mitochondrial dysfunction. So
Yeah.
there's evidence that viruses are a likely part of the picture, even
Yeah.
though I don't always test for it.
Yeah.
Because, like you've said, a lot of the things that you do to address something like Epstein-Barr are really like foundation for
Foundational. Yeah.
health
That's,
anyway.
yeah, and that's the best part. And it's so true. And I was just lucky. I must have been guided. I can't take full credit that, it's just fitting. Uh, Anybody who has some chronic illness can read the book and probably benefit, because the lifestyle and the recommendation, we should be doing these things
Yeah.
because we're not sustainable. That's exactly the point.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're exactly right. Um, there's something called transactivation. If you have that virus in you and you have other infections, these infections can trigger a reactivation of the virus. It could be COVID, for example. It could be H. pylori. That's often I see that. Opportunistic bacteria in your gut, candida. So oftentimes there's a very specific uh, physiological process. And I actually quoted that study in the book because I was fascinated how it's even possible. So basically, it's a party time, and it goes both ways. So if you have reactivation of EBV, that can transactivate other pathogens that you may have inactive.
Yeah.
So that's why EBV is predictable and straightforward, like I said, except oftentimes it comes with a bucket full of other infections.
Yeah. They tend to run together like frenemies.
Yeah, yeah. Fraternity club,
Yeah.
party time.
I have this theory. We don't fully understand breast implant illness just because of lack of studies. But we're starting to have more and more studies that are popping up, and more doctors, PhDs, researchers who are interested in this topic who are starting to study it, and some really interesting findings coming to the surface. But I have this theory about breast implants and the toxicity associated with them and the immune impact. And so, what I tend to see, and you tell me your thoughts on this because I'd love to hear it. But what I tend to see is that parasites are really quite a common issue for women who've had breast implants or breast implant illness.
Wow.
And we know that parasites tend to upregulate the Th2, a branch of the immune system, right? And when that happens, then they release this cytokine, interleukin 4, and that comes over to the Th1 side of the immune system, which is the part that helps us address viruses and binds to the macrophages and that hold the viruses at bay. And what that will do is flip a gene on that triggers viral replication so that they're actively replicating now. And I think that the parasites become an issue because of the toxic terrain that the breast implants are helping to create. And so we just have like toxicity and then parasites and then all these other bugs like, Epstein-Barr and Candida and, things like that. And not only that, but it's also usually a combination of things. It's not just one thing. And I don't believe it's just breast implants either that are making people so sick. I think
Right.
it's this perfect storm, right? Someone might have amalgams.
Wow.
Someone might have a cavitation or multiple cavitations. Someone might be living in a moldy home and then have breast implants. And it's like this
Oh my.
chemical soup, and no wonder not everyone, but a lot of women are so sick. I think there's so many other parts to this puzzle. And so I think the immune system becomes such a problem that then, parasites and viruses are allowed to wreak havoc on the body and become a huge issue, right?
Wow.
These people tend to get really sick and they can't seem to overcome anything. And you see a lot of those people, who
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
seem to overcome Epstein-Barr.
Right.
But if we can get that Th2 side down, then the Th1 can upregulate again and take care of the virus. And so obviously, dealing with other pathogens and detoxing the body is so important. And then the diet, lifestyle, foundational things,
Yeah.
lots of antioxidants.
Yeah.
And then there's the mitochondrial issue, right? So how do you see Epstein-Barr? Do you see it impacting the mitochondria?
Yes, it targets mitochondria, so they're taxed. And again, when you have proper supplementation and a diet, you support mitochondria. I mean, these are basic blocks like B vitamins, a little bit of iron if
Mhm.
needed, omega-3, magnesium. I mean, simple nutrients again and again pop up. I love what you said about Th1, Th2, the parasites. Ah, it makes a lot of sense. From my perspective as a nutritionist,
Mhm.
the terrain is better even for parasites if you have functioning stomach acid, because stomach acid creates a pH that is hostile to pathogenic overgrowth. And if you have parasites that you inject with food, technically the stomach acid should be able to cleave those proteins, just like chicken you eat,
Yeah.
dismantle them.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes that's not happening. And that's like going upstream. That's a different story for a different time, probably, but I see that connection a lot. And that makes the gut terrain so weak. So you have overgrowth of the parasites. Sometimes parasites, maybe they won't even show up until you have, and they just show up when the terrain shifts and shit happens to a person.
Yeah.
Pardon my language, but it's just something happens. Maybe you didn't just ingest it. So we live with millions of these things in us, right?
Mhm.
And and like when you're talking about rebuilding immune system, one of the things people forget is one of the best things is fiber, because fiber feeds your microbiota. That's what they eat. And in order for them to thrive and create the immune system, is the gut immune system. That's like 80% of your immune system,
Yeah.
right on the gut lining.
Yeah.
And so, and your microbiota, your good bacteria, are supposed to poop out the fiber they eat and produce things that create integrity in the colon. And then it seeps into the bloodstream and feeds your T regulatory cells, which are like Superman of immune system.
Yeah.
So if people look away, but we can go back to real basic stuff and eat real foods, and that already helps shift that terrain, so you're not so sticky for all these infections.
Yeah.
It's like, and so we can look at it from different angles and it's still the same solution,
Yeah.
right?
It is.
And that's why you're smiling and I'm smiling, because at the end of the day, we have all the tools. It's doable, it's possible. We
Yeah.
can do that. We just have to go back to basics.
Yeah. We have to be a very bad host.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can clean up the environment in our body, if we can remove, breast implants, amalgam fillings, address cavitations, get out of a moldy home, clean up the toxic terrain in our body, clean up our gut, really feed our oral biome, balance our microbiome, heal leaky gut, and get our immune system back in balance, then we can overcome things like Epstein-Barr and be healthy again.
Yeah,
Yes.
we can. Yes. There's one more sticky point though.
Okay.
And the sticky point is where after so many years in clinical practice, this is where I'm moving in my practice and in my direction and in how I'm going to serve in future. And it is more the work that Sachin Patel is doing. It's more, I recognize now that in order to really heal, we need to turn on the joy factor, the
Yeah.
joy that comes from being heard, doing what you love, being connected to your source, uh, walking your truth, self-expressing, and all this comes to joy, and joy comes from self-love. And when you go deep enough in our trajectory, when people get ill, there's a lot of pain. and a lot of feeling of I'm not good enough, I'm not loved enough, I'm not good enough. That's just the very base, just like that fiber. It's just the very basic core experience we have in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Most of us, 99.9% probably. And there's trauma of abuse, there's all those things that we carry in order to release all that. Joy is the shortcut,
Mm,
because joy, when you're in joy, you can't be in stress.
right.
It's like pregnancy, you're pregnant or not, you can be a little pregnant.
Yeah.
So it's like a chemical switch. Stress is on, stress is switched off when you are in joy. So I'm pursuing my joy, and right now I'm working on learning from horses
Mm,
how they do the healing and how to bring that healing to more humans, because there's they have incredible capacity to hold that love for us, to open that door so people can have more joy. And when people heal more deeply and follow the joy, they actually, believe it or not, become healers, whether it's arts, music, teaching, medicine,
yeah.
and they serve with joy and improve other people's life and help other people. If we do that loop, it doesn't get better than this. If
Yeah.
we can do that, and people that are really ill, they lost that ability and they don't even dream about it anymore. They
Yeah.
buried it. And so for me, it's like, yes, the physicality of it, we have the tools, but really we can proceed deeper, and really in this lifetime we can have that joy and deeper meaning in our life. And
Yeah.
that's healing. That is just so healing, mind over matter, I would think. Don't you think?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, we're more than physical beings,
Yes.
so we have to nurture that side of ourselves, our, the spiritual side, the mental, emotional side, and be
Yeah.
connected with our higher power, whatever that is for you. And um, yeah, and our own mindset and our own belief system, we can be doing all the right things, but if we don't believe we can get better,
Right.
never going to get better, right?
Right.
Um,
Well, would you say, because I don't know your community that well, but would you say that in your community there is some truth to it, that the implants were supposed to compensate for something? So there was maybe a feeling of I'm not good enough without them. I have to put them in.
yeah,
I mean, it's not like putting lipstick. It's invasive procedure. It takes a lot of prep and thought and planning and finances. It's a big deal to put something in. So
yeah.
so am I on the right track?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there are a lot of reasons why people get breast implants. And I
Of
see
course.
women getting them after, their childbearing years to try to recover some of their physical appearance. I see them getting them after radical mastectomy. I see them getting them,
Oh, that's true too.
just
Yes,
because, yeah, just because they had some deformity maybe and were very self-conscious
that's true
about it.
too.
And then there
That
are
is true
other
too.
sides of the story where maybe there was some infidelity in the relationship and maybe divorce. And maybe that's when they got breast implants, that insecurity. For me, it was actually in childhood. I was about 10 or so, and my grandmother, who I absolutely love and adore, and I know she didn't mean anything malicious by this, but she told me when I was around 10 that I was going to be 4'11", just like her, but don't worry, because you're going to have the Johnson boobs. And so it was don't worry, you're going to have the Johnson boobs that set the stage for my lack of self-worth and self-esteem in that area and my
Oh,
desire for large breasts my entire life. I stuffed my bra when I was in middle school, and then could not wait to finally get my breast implants placed. Like that was something I had always wanted from that very moment. I always wanted the Johnson boobs.
wow.
And so it's interesting because we're
Amazing.
just little sponges soaking up
Yeah.
and absorbing and making meaning out of the world.
My gosh, just one comment changed your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sorry I didn't think about other circumstances, because I think, and that is my projection. I assume a breast plant is for aesthetic. reasons, but there's many, many reasons. And even like yours was, you were so imprinted that it was your dream. It became your dream.
Yeah,
That's
I
so
didn't, I
powerful.
wanted to be in the Johnson Boob Club, you know, and I watched my mom get teased when I was young and she was an adult. And, you know, they always teased her for having no chest, so flat, you know, and
Oh, I see. I see. Oh
so
my
I
God.
didn't want that to be me.
That's hard. That's hard.
Yeah,
That is so hard.
yeah. It's kind of deep stuff, you know. So we definitely have to learn to love ourselves and you know, appreciate how we were designed, how we were created, and see the beauty in ourselves regardless of what that looks like. You know, we're all beautiful, and
We are, we are, we
knowing
are.
who we are inside, outside of our physical appearance is so important as well.
Yep. We're much bigger than the physical body. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you have an amazing service. Keep going. Women need you.
Well, thank you. So do you, Kasia. And um, any last words of wisdom for the ladies who are going to be watching this?
In all our human mind is tragically different from all the animal species on the planet. We ruminate over the bad and the scary, and we forget the beautiful and the love and the joy. So if at any point you can just remember what you used to love and find a place to do it again,
Mm-hmm.
and turn off the clock and just lose yourself in it. This is the reminder of the childhood, what you used to do. We bring that back, because life is so much easier. Whatever pain there is and illness and complications, life is so much easier. It flows better when you can spend that little time doing what you love, tune everything out, whatever it is, crocheting, listening to music, dancing, whatever that is, just doing something. Like for me right now, visiting horses, hanging around,
Yeah.
sitting on the grass with them standing over me, that just helping them, putting my hands on them, do whatever that is. That would be my last thought. Just don't forget about those precious moments of joy. Bring them back,
Yeah.
dust them off.
So this is Kasia Kines' book. And so I highly suggest anyone watching this, grab it if you think it might be an issue for you worth exploring. And then I know, Kasia, you also have a very extensive quiz based on medical literature
Yes,
and the different presentations of Epstein-Barr, both common and
yes,
uncommon, and that will really help a person to suggest if a person should pursue testing to rule it in or out, rule Epstein-Barr in or out as a contributor to their symptoms. So that quiz, I'll link it with the video, but it's ebvhelp.com/quiz. So you
yeah.
all can take that quiz and see if this is a likely issue for you.
Yes, and it's HELP. Sometimes people think it's health. It's help,
No, help
helping people.
with a
Yeah,
P.
I know, but people get confused there all the time. There's also on that website, we also have a little button to test. So if anybody wants to see which lab antibodies you actually want, you can
Mhm.
click on that, and you're going to see all four of them. You can write them down, and you can go to your doctor. So you ask for proper testing if you need to.
Yes.
So yes, these are free resources. There's many more on that website. Mm-hmm.
So important, because I can't tell you how many people have come to me with, oh, I've been tested for that already. And they have like the missing marker. They just
Yeah,
didn't get the full panel.
it's very common, unfortunately. Yes, I'm not blaming the doctors. It's just not set properly. It's all science, and
Yeah. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Well, thank
Just
you
what it
so
is.
much, Kasia, for your time and for sharing all
My
your wisdom
pleasure.
with us, and really appreciate you and all the work that you're doing over there in Seattle or near Seattle.
Yeah,
And
vice versa.
thank you.
Vice versa. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so if you're looking for more information, definitely visit Dr. Kasia Kines' website and take her quiz and go from there.
Yep.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right. Take care.